On to door number 2. Now this is the driver's door, left side. There's a few things with this door. You can see that this has been cut here. Doesn't look like it got lined up quite right there. It looks like it's a little hair off here. I don't think that will make a big deal, but and you can see that the weld is welded all along here too, and it's cracked. The weld is cracked. And when you come around to the bottom of this, you see how much rod is in here, here and here. Well, you start looking at it, doesn't look that bad, but in reality, see, that's all rotted out. All the way down here, through here. This corner is all bad, up into here. And you can see right through there. That means the other side is bad. I'll show you that right now. And here is the body side of the door. You can see that it's rotted here, dented all along in here. You can see that they welded, I showed this earlier, they welded the hinge into the body and everything else. There's quite a dent here. I don't know if I can kind of get that to show very well, but there's a huge dent. You can see it creased right in through here. So there's a big dent. It starts way up here, comes around that area there, and then you can see that this lip, see if I can show you that lip, see how that lip ramps up. It should be flat like that. There's a few little problems here. You got this is all dented down here. And then we get to some bad stuff here. This area here has been swiped somehow. You can see that it's puckered here and it's puckered down here, which means that this needs to get pushed back in this way to help pull this out this way. Yeah, what a pain, huh? Okay, you can see there's a big dent here. Could have caused some issue in the inside there. Here's another bad dent right here. This all has to be reformed. So all in all, this door is a mess. It is literally a mess. My only other choice is this door right down here, which is all rotted on the bottom. And of course, it's very heavy rust all the way around, although I think the door is straight. So I'm going to tackle this door first and see how I feel about it. This is going to be my biggest problem, I think, here. And how am I going to get that out? I'm going to drill these rivets out. There's some rivets under here. You can just barely see them here. I'm going to drill those out. I'm going to grind this away. I may have to replace a good part of all this. This has got an indentation here. You can kind of see it up here a little bit. There's an indentation. And that's the same thing that's down here. And they had a plate welded in here, as I showed in my other videos. So I'm going to get on it and we'll see if I can make anything out of this. So starting on this, I decided that I wanted to pull the hinge out first. This was in there. So I had to drill out the rivets. It also had a couple little spot welds in there that I had to hammer out. You can kind of see them right there, and barely see that one right there. But anyway, I wanted to get that out first. And I wanted to take it out, even though I know I'm going to be replacing a lot of this stuff, or at least it's going to have to be replaced, because you can see the cracks in here. In fact, there was a weld crack, a crack right here that was welded before. So all this area here has to be replaced. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to knock this out first. I wanted to kind of work on this stuff, this face here, this sheet metal here. I wanted to kind of work on that a little bit first. and kind of get some of this smoothed out just a little bit. So that gives me a little bit better idea where I got to go here. That's why I wanted that out, because this was so full of weld that I had to grind and cut out. And then I have to rebuild this hinge opening here. It's got like it's kind of got an edge around it like that. So I got to rebuild all that. So that's why I did that. I'm continuing on. Continuing on this mess of a door. So this whole bottom section from here all the way up and around, and this hinge area all the way up to here is going to have to be replaced. So I started doing that with this piece of metal here. What I did is I took a piece of metal, I bent it, then I started to shrink and stretch it. You can see it's not straight. If you look down this, it's curved. And then I have it curved here, and I really, really pushed it there. See, it's ripped. Ripped right there, which is fine. So it's going to be trimmed, welded anyway. So this is going to fit in here, kind of like that. It's going to replace the metal under here. This end here is bent all out of shape, but the rest of this is pretty decent. I took this edge and put it in the door jamb of the cab. It's pretty close, it's close enough. Anything that it's not, I can always hammer and dolly this a little bit more one way or the other. No big deal. And there's going to be another piece of metal that goes over the top of this, which is the skin. So this is just the inside. This is just the inside. So it's going to go here, and I'm going to take this off here, and it's going to go underneath that. I'm going to put a new one of these on here all the way. So I'm going to grind this edge right here, and that will split this from the skin. I will then be able to peel this off. I'm going to cut this here along this body line, this hard edge, all the way, and then I'm going to start fitting this in there. Now this edge here will come and hang over. That's what I want to do. I want it to hang over. So I can trim that to fit when I get it in the truck. I'll probably trim it a little bit so I can close the door and then work my way. Then I will replace this piece with probably just another piece of metal just like this. And then the skin will then this will all be tacked here or welded here. That's what my plan is. And in addition to this, I have to replace all this stuff. But when I do that, I think I'm going to cut some of the skin off because it's in bad shape. So there we have it. So continuing on, I did what I thought, I said I was going to do. I cut along the curve of this piece. I peeled off this strip that was there. And then I cut, like I said, I cut along there, and I took that whole thing out. I went to here to there, so I'm kind of replacing that whole piece. And then underneath, you see my door skin. So you can see how much longer I have it, so I can cut that all off. But right now, is what I did was I traced with a scribe on the back side, put a piece of tape on there, cut that so I kind of had this line here like this. And then is what I did was then I took a flapper grinder sander, and then I just sanded this piece down so it fit right in there. So now is what I'm doing is I'm actually butt welding it in. Suppose you wouldn't have to. You could probably left a little here and lap weld that in, but I want to, and you probably wouldn't have mattered, but I felt I wanted to butt weld it in. And you see how I got it so it comes around here. I cut all this out. That was all rotted anyway. this piece, I'm going to probably cut this here and over, and then replace this in another piece here. I'll cut this all out, replace that as another piece. And then there's a little patch I got to do right here because it kind of ate away. So I'll do that. And the skin on the back side, I have to cut this corner out here on the other side. So I'll be doing that too. Meanwhile, I'm going to tack this in a little bit more. I might tack it on the skin side, just so I know I have a good bond, and then I'm going to move on. I won't do a final weld yet. Here's where I'm at. I've got, you know, obviously all that cut out. Is what I did is I got this hinge off a different door, because obviously the other one's all welded and cut up, and I bolted it in right now. So you got these button head type bolts. This hinge is tight, although I will change hinge pins, but I wanted to get it so I can set it up on the door opening, because I know this needs to be trimmed, because this is actually the bottom of the door right here, and I know this needs to be trimmed off somewhere right in there, but I want to make sure I had plenty. So, and when I set this body piece on, I wanted to make sure that this all lined up all the way down with the body. Now, I ran into another problem, and that is this hole here. As you can see, it's egg-shaped. And this is the pin that should be snug in there. And it's the same with this side. So it fits into here just fine. And yeah, it's a wore out pin. I've got another one, but I was using this just for mock-up. So it looks like I have to fix these holes. And that's what I'm going to do. I gotta think about it a bit, but I'm pretty sure I know exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm also going to get rid of this hole. This hole, I think, was for the mirror. Something to do with it, because that's the only hinge that has that. It's on my other one too. So anyway, I'm going to probably weld this solid on one, put this hinge in there and chase a drill through it, and then weld this side solid and do it the other way. That'll at least give me a good solid piece there. So, all right, next time you see it, hopefully that'll be done. So I'm back on the door, and what I'm doing is I think I showed I bolted this on, and then there's the other hinge. Well, what I wanted to do, since this hinge had such a sloppy hole, as I pointed out, I wanted to take a rod. Now this is only a 1/4 inch rod. These pins are 280, and this is 250. So what I wanted to do is just kind of put this in there, and I wanted to weld up these holes around this tube. So by bringing this up here like this, I can get this in there, but then it hits nothing. And I know this can be slightly adjusted, but that's not the problem. The problem here is, if you take a good look at this hinge, it is actually tilted this way. So if I were to take this rod coming the other way, get it through there, and there's where it goes. It's as close as I can get, is right there, without bending the rod. And I don't want to bend the rod. That's the whole point. So what's wrong is this hinge needs to be twisted. This side needs to go that way. That'll put me in. See, I can't even get that over there. That's how far off that is. you got to have these hinges lined up, at least pretty close, so the hinges work right together. So when this door was hit and damaged, this hinge here twisted. So now I got a bead on this. Maybe have to heat it up and wrench it over to line up before I can start doing my hole fill. I'll take a tube, stick it in there, weld it, cut it off, and then I'll have a hole pre-made there for my drill bit to come through, and I can drill all the way up to the 180 I need to, just through here. So anyway, that's the idea, but that's the dilemma. Thought I would just point that out quick. So here's how I'm doing this. I kind of explained it. Took my rod. I got a steel rod. You know, it's a little. There's a little play in here because it's just a hair smaller. Ran it through. Took this hinge here, heated it up, bent it where I needed to bend it, so that rod would just go nice straight through there. Now I welded that rod in there, see, through here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut the rod off here and here, and then I'll grind it smooth on each side, and then I'll do the same to the inside. Of course, before I do that though, before I cut the inside off, I'm going to chase this with a drill bit. So this thing's got the hole in it because this is a brake line. So I'm just going to chase it with a drill bit so I know it's nice and straight through. And there you go. I see that, see, this is cracked here, so I got to weld all that up too, besides fixing all this. So there it is, welded. I kind of welded up the cracks too, but you can see now the hole is pretty good, and the pin now is snug in there, so when the knurl hits that, that'll be nice and tight, and that goes all the way in. This pin's a little short, but you get the idea. So to explain a little more what I did, I took these drill bits and chased the inside of the tube. This is the tube. I chased the inside of the tube through all the way, kept going, and just stepping it up, and then pretty soon this got so thin that it broke out. And at that time, then I could just do my final couple drill bits, and that's it. And the hinge will fit right in there. See? Now I can try to get the door on the truck to get it kind of fitted a little bit before I start going too much further into some of this other work, like the door skin and stuff. So there it is. That's what I had to do to that hinge. So there it is. The door is sort of on the cab. In order to make it close, of course, I had to grind a little bit down on my flange, which I knew was big. You can see that the rocker is actually here, so I got to trim this off. Remember, this was the bottom of the door, so I mean, I may have to trim as much as that off. But as I was trying to figure out if it fits decently, I can see that this hinge probably needs to be bent a little more this way. But the door is low. I had some other problems with this hinge. It went in there, but this part that bolts in here was all twisted. So I had to straighten that out. And then it wouldn't even fit in there. But it was, I straightened it before I put it in there, and then I went to put it in and it still wouldn't fit. I had to grind it kind of smooth and get the crap off of it. But it was twisted, so it wouldn't fit on the door right. So this is it so far. I think that to me that's a huge fee. See, it's dragging right up there. Don't know. There's plenty of room down here, which tells me that this hinge definitely needs to go this way. Hopefully bring this way, that way. Anyway, regardless, I'm going to go through the same stuff that I went through on the other door. Probably won't exactly go so deep with this one like I did the last one, since I did on the last one. So my goal is to line up the door, probably weld in those nuts. I will put this patch in. I will cut this. I will make a rib like this around it. This rib here is dented way in, so this all has to get pulled out. That'll then roll this towards the hinge a little bit. And then of course there's a dent here. So that'll all have to be pulled, and that's that. But the thing is, to me, this is a milestone because this door was so bad. And it actually fits. Now I have something to go from. Okay, well, there was a lot of issues after I got that door initially fit. So I'm gonna kind of talk about it a little bit because it was so bad. Over here, when you shut the door, this gap would be about like that on the bottom, just like that. And so now I got it so it shuts, and it's reasonably good all the way up. What I actually had to do was, you can see those marks up here. That's where I put a 2x4, pushed this door like this, and then I shoved and shoved and shoved it here to actually twist that door like that, you know. Now I'm getting a decent gap there. At least that's good enough for now, because I will probably end up having to gap this door again, like I said, just like the other side. I did have to trim more of this down. As you can see, I'm getting closer and closer to the bottom of where this door is. But it does clear. My other problem I'm having now is up here, there's something hitting up here. Yeah, up in this corner here, something is still hitting a little bit right up in here. I may have to bend this more back out like that. Otherwise, I got the body line, you know, pretty close, just a tick high. So I'm expecting some weight to go in there. Everything else is looking okay. Like I said, I would have to gap the door yet, but the door is actually starting to get into shape because it was so beat. This area of the door was pushed in, so this opening was larger. It still has some remnants of some damage right up in here. This piece right here was twisted out, so which made this wider. I think I explained that. So now I cut that out, repositioned that, got that in, pulled this out to where it's supposed to be, pushed this whole thing in where it's supposed to be. I gotta straighten this just a touch right here for the garnish molding, but that should be no big deal. This was cracked. Again, these welds have to be ground and re-welded. So all in all, now the door shuts pretty decent. I'm going to continue on because I got to finish this body piece here, make the notch, do the rib around it. I got to pull this dent out. There's a few things, so I might continue on here to show you the end. So continuing on, I redid the cab jamb there. So now the door gap's right. I'll have to do a little bit more up top yet. I started putting this piece in, that's all butt welded together. And again, I'm working on gapping the bottom. You can see it's pretty tight. It's pretty decent over here, you know, but then when you work this way, it's a little tight. So that's fine. I can just grind that back a little bit, no big deal. You can see the gap's a little heavy here. Door's not completely shut, but it's a little heavy here, and it's a little heavy here, you know. So I'll add to the door from about this white line. You can see that's the right gap right there. So it's getting a little less up there and more down here. So I'll have to straighten that out yet. And coming around, you can see I marked dents. This is a dent here. There's a dent here. You can kind of see it whoops up. I got to pull that out before I add anything to here. I also still have this dent here, and I have this dent I pulled, and then I recreated the bead that goes around it. And here's the underneath here. You can kind of see how that is. You know, I made this whole piece all the way around, and then that's where it is there. And now I got to put another thin piece of metal along here. So that'll give me my flange. That'll look like that. You know, it'll come along here. So I got to do there. I got to fill some of this up, and I got to repair this yet. The other thing I got to do is, as you can see here, this is not finished off yet. So I got to finish that off too. So that's where I'm at. I will continue. So now with the door I took off, I'm starting to rebuild this whole area here now. Now it's not exactly like factory because my hinge, I pulled my hinge out a little bit more to keep the angle a little more straight down this way. So I pulled it out a little bit. However, I did put some metal in here. It'll have you can barely see it, but there's a ramp there, just like the original. It'll dip in right through here. But I put a patch. I actually welded it here, across the top, welded it here, and it'll all blend in. I gotta replace this part yet. I gotta straighten this hole out a little bit. This is for where the door stopper is. And then I gotta add this piece in here, and in here, and all the way down the side, or the bottom I should say, all the way down the bottom, and so it'll look like a flange here. And then I gotta add a little bit of metal to this, not much, about that much. You see, if you can barely see the difference between here and there, from here up to about here, it's gotta have just a little bit of metal added in there to get my door gap. So that's kind of where I'm at on this. I'll just continue on until this thing's done. Just showing a little bit more progress on the door. This is all finished welded. I still gotta grind it. I had to adjust this a little bit, just a smidgen to get this straight. Same with down here. I just tacked in this round rod that kind of comes around to create my bead that goes around there. Now this is a little bit bigger. I can grind that down just a little bit. I can form that in now. I have gapped this from here all the way up. This is on the front side of that door. I also started grinding down on this a little bit more. Now I had it pretty straight all the way across here on the bottom, but I'll show you what I did. So I continued on with the door, with the back side of the door. As you can see, I still got to grind down a little bit here. I added this piece of metal in to give me the same flange. So this will all be blended together as one. I added this flange in here. This is all welded here. I added this flange in all the way down. And then I had to repair this flange. It all matches up here. So there's a few little spots like that there I got to weld. This has all been, after I grounded, I re-welded this again to make sure I had good penetration. I had to repair an area here. I had to repair the curve here. And then I had to come up here and repair this. I put a bigger weld in here so I have more meat to grind on to kind of give me that contour that I want. That'll match the other one there. So that's where I'm at. I also fixed this weld here. They had this welded, so this was really floppy. I actually cut the weld and re-welded it. Still got to grind it a little bit, but as you can see, they got a little weld here, and then there's some weld up here. So we're gonna work on that a little bit more. Overall, the door is finally coming into shape. It's finally getting to a point where I think it'll fit decent on the truck and be able to be worked. As you can see under here, I still got, a little bit of grinding to do, which is fine. Some of this is going to have a little skim on it to kind of smooth it out, some of these welds. So that's where I'm at right now. This door's been a lot of work.